Dear children of God, today we will explore a passage that speaks directly about the end of the world, a time of chaos and need, and the events leading up to it. In Matthew 24:1 and verses 15 to 22, Jesus offers a stern warning, not only for the people of his time, but for all of us as we anticipate God's ultimate plan for the world. Let's take a deeper look into this passage, what it means and how it applies to believers today. The passage begins in Matthew 24:15 to 16, where Jesus calls for immediate action. When you see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand then that those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. The urgency in Jesus' words is unmistakable. He isn't telling us to take our time or carefully consider what to do. He is telling us to flee, to leave everything behind and head for the mountains immediately. Why this urgency? What could require such a dramatic and quick response? The answer lies in the severity of the event, the abomination of desolation. This phrase signifies a terrible and deeply offensive act that leads to destruction. It is a term that Jesus borrows from the prophet Daniel, who prophesied about a time when the temple, the most sacred place in Judaism, would be defiled in a horrific manner. According to many scholars, this prophecy was partially fulfilled in 167 BC, when the Greek king Antiochus IV Epiphanes desecrated the Jewish temple by setting up an altar to Zeus and sacrificing pigs on it, a deep affront to the Jewish people and their faith. However, Jesus points toward an event that will happen in the future, signaling the beginning of what he calls the Great Tribulation, a time of unprecedented suffering and chaos. The abomination of desolation is not just an isolated event in history. It is a signal of a significant shift in the world's spiritual and physical condition, marking the onset of intense persecution, suffering, and divine judgment. The full meaning of this prophecy is still unfolding and is believed to have a future fulfillment, possibly tied to events leading up to Christ's second coming. In verses 17 to 20, Jesus emphasizes the immediacy of the danger. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house, and let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. This paints a picture of a scenario where there is no time to gather possessions, not even the essentials. The danger is so overwhelming and imminent that any delay, even for something as simple as retrieving your coat, could be fatal. Jesus' warning applies not only to the people of Judea at the time, but to all believers in the future, as it foreshadows a global calamity that will unfold rapidly. In this time of tribulation, Jesus also expresses concern for the vulnerable, particularly for pregnant women and nursing mothers, saying in verse 19, "And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing infants in those days. Their suffering will be even more profound. given the difficulties they will face while fleeing from danger. In verse 20, Jesus advises his followers to pray that their flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath, emphasizing how critical it is to escape without additional hardships that might hinder their survival. Now, what is this great tribulation that Jesus speaks of in such dire terms? In Matthew 20:4-21, he describes it as a time of great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now, no, and never will be. This statement underscores the unparalleled intensity of the suffering that is to come. Jesus isn't just talking about a local disaster or a temporary hardship. He is referring to a global catastrophe that will be unlike anything humanity has ever experienced. The tribulation will surpass all previous wars, famines, and natural disasters, plunging the world into chaos. Many theologians see a parallel between Jesus' words and the prophecies found in the book of Revelation, particularly in relation to the rise of the Antichrist, the desecration of the holy place, and the persecution of believers. The Great Tribulation will be a time when the forces of evil, led by the Antichrist, gain significant control over the world, both politically and spiritually. Revelation 13 talks about the mark of the beast, a symbol of loyalty to the Antichrist, without which no one will be able to buy or sell. Those who accept this mark will align themselves with the forces of evil and face God's judgment. Revelation also speaks of terrifying judgments being poured out upon the earth during this time. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, symbols of conquest, war, famine, and death, will bring destruction on a global scale. As the seals of judgment are broken, the world will be shaken by wars, economic collapse, widespread disease, and natural disasters. The bold judgments described in Revelation 16 represent God's wrath being poured out on those who have rejected Him and aligned themselves with the Antichrist. The severity of the tribulation is not without purpose. It serves as both judgment and a final call to repentance. God's goal is not only to punish, but also to purify and redeem. Those who remain faithful during this time will be tested, and those who have not yet turned to God will be given one last opportunity to do so before Christ's return. In Matthew 20:22, Jesus offers a glimmer of hope, stating that if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. God's mercy will intervene, preventing total destruction for the sake of His chosen people. This is a reminder that even in the midst of judgment, God's grace and compassion are still at work. As we reflect on this passage, It's essential to understand that the Great Tribulation is not just an abstract concept or a distant event. It is part of God's overarching plan for the redemption of the world, leading to the ultimate return of Jesus Christ. After the tribulation, Christ will return in glory, bringing an end to evil and establishing his kingdom of righteousness, justice, and peace.